We humans are different, so. Karibu, welcome to Nairobi, welcome to Kenya. I really hope that all of you also will get some time to explore these fantastic, beautiful nations. Just don't only stay inside here. This is one of the most beautiful. Kenya is for sure, I mean, there are competitors, but Kenya is for sure one of the most beautiful nations on planet Earth. Now Kenya has had rain, so it's green. You have the most spectacular wildlife anywhere in the world. So please make sure that you have some opportunity to also explore Kenya, not just discuss all the environment matters. Let me then also start by recognizing the presence of some of my old good friends. Miroslav Lajčák, now the President of the General Assembly, long-time great Foreign Minister of Slovakia. Judy Wakongo just spoke, but what she did not say, at least not as clearly as I will say it, she is the woman. She is the person behind the ban on plastics in this nation. Sure, she needed the support from President Kenyatta now, but she is the woman. And it's so inspirational. What also is so good to see, people of Kenya support it. There were a lot of uncertainty, that people came around supporting this. Then Solheim Sevde, my good friend and good compatriot here at the UN compound. She's the head of UN in Nairobi. I may also add, she's hiding over there, but Patricia Espinosa, the head of UN Climate Convention, coming back from a very successful climate convention in Bonn, which really set the world on the target to implement the Paris Agreement, and where even new nations joined the Paris Agreement. Thank you, Patricia. Then let me take you to Washington, D.C. Right before Barack Obama left office as the President of the United States, I listened to one of his speeches in Washington. He said, "My two young daughters, Malia and Sasha, has never heard about acid rain." When I started speaking about acid rain, which was, by the way, the main environment issue when I came to adulthood, they closed their eyes and go somewhere else, into internet or somewhere else, he said. Why is that? Well, the problem of acid rain is resolved. There is no acid rain anymore in the United States of America. And by the way, in my nation, Norway, for 100 years, from 1900 to 2000, we had no salmon in the rivers of southern Norway because of the acid rain of pollution. Now salmon is coming back into our rivers. Come and visit. Kenya first, but come later to Norway and see, if you are fishermen, see this beauty of the salmon. That's of course because the Germans and the Brits and so many other European nations stick to what they should do and fought against acid rain. There is a lesson to be learned from this. What drives change? And that I think what we should make our kind of call also from this meeting. I think when government takes the lead, visionary leadership, when business find the practical, new, innovative solutions, and when civil society and citizens push all of us to change, that's when we get change. And that's also how I see UN environment. And I will set out a few issues for you here, which are not directly related to pollution, but it's an opportunity for me to speak to many of you, also to get the corrections if you think we're on the wrong path. UN environment has a lot of technical expertise on basically any environment issue. But I take the view that unless we link that up with the demands from the high level of government in your member states, we will fail. I just spoke with the Environment Minister of Algeria. She set out the priorities on the environment of the government of Algeria, and we will try to deliver and assist her in her endeavor. Because the world is so big, we cannot do everything. We can only be successful under the leadership of governments. If you don't want us to do something, let's go somewhere else. Let's have that in mind for whatever we do, government leadership, but us bringing global expertise, global presence, platforms for what you want to do. Secondly, without the innovation of business, we will fail. And I've set out to completely change the way we work with business, much more open, much more a dialogue, and relating to business in all parts of the world. Here in Kenya, we have made partnership with Kenya Airways, with Safaricom. In China, we are partnered with Ants Financial, the biggest company in the digital finance sector in the world, with Build Your Dreams, the biggest producer of electrical buses in the world, with Mobike, the biggest company in the bike sharing industry, which you can see outside here, and so many other companies. Moving to India, we have made a partnership with India Business Chamber, with NABARD, the big development bank of India, and with many other Indian institutions. In Saudi Arabia, we made a memorandum with the Riyadh Business Chamber to set out how Saudi Arabia can make the change from completely dependent, or at least very much dependent on fossil fuels, into more renewables. In Europe, we are partnering with Rabobank, with BNP Paribas, with Covestro, and I can go around the globe like this. But let's partner with business, and particularly, of course, with those businesses to drive the change into the future. And finally, there is no way we can do without citizens, without civil society organizations, all those strong networks and individual civil society organizations fighting for the environment. But if we want to engage with citizens, we need to change the language of the United Nations. We cannot speak an abstract, inward-looking language. We cannot continue to use any number of acronyms. We need to set out environment in emotional, appealing terms. We need to drive environment home. Unless we can do that, we will fail. And I think we are on the way to do it. The Secretary General of the United Nations is also taking the lead on this effort in the entire UN. The UN, by the way, need to reform. Please support the efforts by the Secretary General for reform of the UN. The bureaucracy is unbelievable. Both the bureaucracy we have created here in Nairobi, and even more so the bureaucracy created in New York. These must change because we are using the money of your people. We want to change the world to be more environment friendly and to bring everyone out of poverty. Then we need to be more effective. And then we need to support the reform agenda of the Secretary General. We have set out this event to focus on pollution, the big aim of a pollution-free planet. But let me use this opportunity to mention a few other areas where we really also want to drive change. Because tomorrow I will have the opportunity to speak to you on pollution. One is environment security. There's a strong linkage between wars and conflict on one side and environment degradation on the other side. It's not a one-to-one simple connection. There's a strong connection. When environment degrades, the likelihood of conflict and wars is bigger. Take neighboring Somalia as an example. 1 million people has gone into the cities of Somalia very recently, forced there by Al-Shabaab terrorism, by the war, by the drought caused by climate change, and by the environment degradation in that nation caused by the charcoal trade. All this comes together. It's very hard to distinguish. That's why we need to join hands to fight it together. We have linked up with 3 governments, but we are ready to link up with others, with the government of Somalia to look into the charcoal trade and how we can provide an energy system which is better for Somalia and for the government, with the government of Iraq on how we can handle the enormous havoc to the environment caused by ISIS or Islamic State or Daesh, as they will be called in Iraq. They put fire to oil wells. They released chemicals out into the nature. They simply fought the people of Iraq, yes, by killing people, but also by destroying the environment for the people there, because that was a mood of war by Daesh. And now time has come. Daesh is crushed, thank God, as a fighting force in Iraq, as a conventional fighting force. Government of Iraq is regaining control, but then we need to help people to come back to the villages and towns, and then we need to fight, for instance, the enormous contaminated debris in the big cities like Mosul, which need to be removed for the city to regain its historical value and fantastic beauty. And finally, with the government of Colombia, which has had a very successful peace process with the FARC, but for instance, which has huge amount of mines because of the lawlessness there, where there is an enormous mercury problem hitting the population. So we'll work with these governments and with the accredited peacemakers of the UN to see how we can bring the environment dimension more into conflict resolution. Secondly, we want to work much more on finance. Without green finance and without the big financial institutions going green, we will fail. Quite often in the UN we focus on the small money. Small money is the money of the UN, which we do need, or the money of aid, but the big money is in the private sector and investment. And we need to focus on that if we want to drive a green development. So now we have the financial inquiry, we have the financial initiative, all about how do we make sure that stock exchanges, national banks, finance ministers, all those who command the financial sector, make the world greener. We've also set out a financial facility starting in Indonesia, where some big banks like BNP Paribas and Rabobank in Latin America come in with big capital, but we will then look into how that capital can benefit the small-scale farmer so that they can improve their productivity and thus not destroy the forests of Indonesia, for instance. We started that in Indonesia. We're now trying to take it to India. We'll do it in Latin America. And of course, the aim is also to do it at this continent, to look into how the big finances can spend the money on the small people. That's what we need, and it's not easy, but for sure I'm sure we will manage to do it. And finally, we need to work much more determinedly to protect this beautiful planet, the wildlife, the nature. This is so nice. This planet is so blue, so white, so green, so fantastically beautiful. It is also vulnerable. As we all know, it's the one planet we have. We need to take much better care of it. That, for instance, means how can we much more protect all the species and the wildlife? How can we find the economic incentives for that to happen? Because if people see an economic benefit of protecting a national park, they will do it. Judy is the first to speak about this, how mobilizing the people of Kenya to protect the wildlife is the only way forward. In Rwanda, they have a national park called Vulcan National Park with gorillas. Protection of gorillas has been fantastic. They now take $1,500 per person to see the gorillas for 1 hour. But of course, it's an enormous income generation mechanism for everyone around. All the taxi drivers, all the guides, all those working in the hotels and the shops, all those benefit from it and are the first to protect the gorillas. So it's a huge economic benefit for Rwanda, while at the same time a fantastic good thing for protecting the beauty of this planet. Let's look into these kind of solutions at a much, much bigger scale. I think we can apply them many parts of the world. So this is my message. We are working on many different issues, all of them with a focus on citizens' action and how we can make people enthusiastic, all of them with a government leadership focus, and with business, we need all three of them. Let me finally thank a few people. I'm very confident that this Environment Assembly will be a big success. But if so happens that it becomes a big success, that is because of the enormous hard work of so many people in the UN environment. It's also because of the very hard work of many ambassadors, negotiators, people from Capital, and so many people here in Nairobi. I cannot single out everyone, but let me at the end single out two persons which deserve particular thank. One is John Moretti, the very capable ambassador of Botswana here in Nairobi, has been the president of the Committee for Permanent Representatives, and the other is obvious, Edgar Guterres, sitting here, the president of the UN Environment Assembly. Both of them have a few characteristics which are common. Both of them are absolutely determined to work for a better planet and environment. Without that inner spirit, you get nowhere. Both of them are very calm, very inclusive, want to listen to everyone. Without that, you get into big trouble. Both of them are decent human beings at the core, and I think that characteristic we should never forget. And both of them have this wonderful humor that when you get into a little bit of problems, maybe if you are a little bit humorous, we can get more easy out of it. So thank you so much, Edgar, and thank you, John, and thank you all of you for coming. And I think we are set for a successful, very important assembly where we will really bring home to the people of the world the need to fight pollution. Thank you so much.